Hi folks, Don Bailey, Suburban Tool. We're going to show you today how to use gauge blocks, how to stack them, and how to make them work for you easily, keeping them clean. And we're going to talk about where the name came from, the history of gauge blocks. They call them Joe blocks back when I was a kid. Today they call them gauge blocks. The inventor, a guy by the name of Johansson, so from Sweden, so why don't we call them Joe blocks? But in any case, let's go in the back and take a look. I'll show you how it's done. Let's go. So Glenn, do you know what gauge blocks are?
No.
I didn't think so, but that's okay. We're going to teach you all about it. We're going to show you how to make a stack, what we call a stack of gauge blocks, and to do it the right way, so it's not complicated. Tool makers that are experienced, they know how to do all this stuff, but we're not really addressing that crowd. We're addressing the guys that are just learning, like yourself. You want to know how to do it, right?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, so we're going to pick a number, and we're going to use this stack as an example. 1 inch 0.7374. 7374. 737, a great name for an airplane, wouldn't it? 737.4? I don't know. Anyway, I want to talk a little bit about the history of gauge blocks because it's really kind of cool. Gauge blocks were invented by a guy by the name of Johansson. Am I saying that right? Johansson?
Johansson?
Yeah, Johansson. Anyway, Carl Edwards Johansson. And hence they named him Joe blocks after him. Well, wouldn't that have been Joe blocks? Joe blocks, right. So he was employed in 1888 by an armor inspector, and as an armor inspector at a state arsenal in Sweden, and at a rifle factory. And this guy was concerned about how was he going to measure, because back in those days they really didn't have anything as a reference, because that's really what gauge blocks are, is they're a reference. So they had plug gauges and that sort of thing, but they were difficult to make, and again, no reference point. So like a ruler. If we have a ruler, can you imagine going through life without a ruler? I mean, if I said to you, Glenn, how tall are you? What would you say? So, I don't know.
Yeah, you definitely need something to measure.
Yeah, 1 axe handle wide and 2 axe handles tall, right? Something like that.
Or hands, like horses.
Hands, right? Hands, horses. That's probably where that came from. So, anyway, he thought that the Germans knew how to do it maybe a little better, so he went to Mauser, which in Germany, where they were making guns over there, and he found out that they had a similar problem. They just weren't doing any better either. So he decided that he had to come up with something. So he was on his way home thinking about it, and he came up with the idea of some kind of gauge block. So he came home and talked to his wife about it, and he took his wife's sewing machine and decided to turn that into a kind of a lapping machine to make these gauge blocks good and flat. And her name, by the way, was Margarita. So now we know where Margaritaville came from, and we know where the margaritas came from. So they didn't really come from Mexico, I don't think. I mean, don't quote me on that, but are you aware of that? No, you're not.
No, I'm not.
Jim, how about you? Are you aware of it?
No, I was not.
Anyway, so now listen to this. This poor woman was in there working in the lab with him, trying to make these gauge blocks, doing housework, and probably doing whatever she had to do in a bedroom for him as well. So I don't know, but anyway, he got a patent in 1902, but he didn't do a whole lot with it right away, and he finally formed the C.E. Janssen company back in 1917, and that started his business. Well, you know what happened? By the way, this guy went back and forth to America like 22 times. I'm not so sure that he was interested in any besides taking cross-Atlantic trips. So, but he started the company, and he got into some trouble financially, but he sold some of the products to Henry Leland, who I believe was he president of Cadillac? Was he the president or founder of Cadillac? I don't know, but anyway, he was pretty important. So Cadillac was using him there, and then he started his manufacturing plant in Poughkeepsie, New York, which is ironic because that's where Cadillac's headquarters are moving back to. Not to Poughkeepsie, but they're going back to New York. And so he got into trouble financially because after the end of World War I, there was an economic crunch, and he almost went broke. In fact, he did. He called Henry Ford and said, "Henry, save me." Henry said, "Okay." So Henry brought his company to Dearborn, set it up there, and started manufacturing gauge blocks for the Henry Ford company and for anybody else who could afford to buy it. So it's kind of cool. It's great history anyway. And he was there from 23 to 27 and you know, dealing with Ford Motor. And then in 1936, he decided it was time to retire. So he was 72 at that time. Well, good for him. The guy retires, right? So then in 1943, he's awarded some gold medal merit from Sweden. And the dude's dead, man. He's dead, but you know, he's got this award. Because I can't imagine he went home to Margarita and said, look at this great award that I just won, right, Margarita? So the company kind of went back and forth to kind of floundered around, and I really don't know what happened to his name, but I know that Brown and Sharp picked up on it. Brown and Sharp started making Gage Blocks, and then Starrett and lots of other people started making them as well. But anyway, that's some cool history I thought you might be interested in knowing. So what we're going to do is, going back to what I started to say earlier, is we're going to make a stack of 1.1 inch 737,004 tenths. Now the trick to this is never, first of all, you might want to think you want to start with a big number, right? Glenn, you want to start with a 1 inch block? No.
No, yeah, wouldn't you? Why not?
Well, because it's backwards. Remember, every block, these blocks are all made in 100,000 increments in the lower numbers. So when you're into the 10th blocks, they're 100,000s and 1/10, 100,000 and 2/10. When you're into the thousands blocks, it's the same thing, 101,000, 102. So you've got to subtract 100. It's kind of convenient to do it that way because you just subtract 100 from your number. So in this case, we want the 10th block, which is 104. So we're going to take that block, and then we want the 37, or the 137. So this is going to be a test for you, Glenn. Now, we remember what we want: 1 inch, 7, 37, and 4/10, right?
Correct.
But we've got 200 here already. So we've got to subtract 200 from our main number. Our main number was 1 inch, 700. So 200 from the 700 is what?
5.
Right. So the next block is 500. So we're going to take the 500 block. And important that we understand how to put the blocks together. They ring together. Now, these are not magnetic. They look like they are, but they're not.
Why not?
Because these are highly lapped, highly precision, and they're so flat that they just stick together by themselves. I like to use the oil from my wrist as I ring them together because it has the right amount of oil on it. And it keeps them really good and lubricated and clean at the same time. So what's the next block now? We've got 5, 6, 7. We've got 700 and 37, 4. So what do we need left? What's left?
37.4.
I already got that, dude. We need the 1 inch block now, right? We've got the 734. 5, 6, 7, 34 right here. 537, 4. So we have 700 now. 737, 4. So now we need the 1 inch block, and we're done. So this is the 1 inch block. And again, we're going to ring those together. And if they were magnetic, what would happen? You know?
You were telling me earlier that the grit would get in there.
Well, it would attract metal dust, because if it's magnetic, you got metal stuff flying all over the air, even though you can't see it. It's
And then
there.
throw it off?
Sure, absolutely to throw it off. So there's your stack, and that's how we do it. So pretty simple, always white, clean white. 1 inch, 737 and 4/10. Simple enough to do. Start with the 4/10, then go to the next decimal, then go to the next decimal, and finally the last decimal. So always start with the farthest decimal on the right. And for every decimal you use, like in the 4/10, it's 104. The 37 is 137. So you would subtract 200 from your stack. That gives you the 500 block. That brings you back to 700. You add the 1 inch, you're done.
Sweet.
So that's how we do it, and that's the simplest way to do it, and I hope that's informative and helpful to you. So thanks for watching.